So the four culprits that they arrested in Russia after the attack, where you had well over 100 people killed and almost 200 wounded, have now appeared in court. Okay, so this is after the concert hall attack. They've had their first day of court, and you know, I'm not here to show you their photographs because I'm not interested in that. What I want to talk to you about are the irregularities, because it's been a few days now, and you've had various bits and pieces coming out of, well, who are these people, and are they really part of ISIS? What is ISIS doing in Russia? So, you know, the first thing that happened is that you had the media in the United States saying ISIS did this. And the Russians hadn't even uttered the names of these perpetrators, of the people that they had arrested or that they thought were responsible. They hadn't posted or shared their photographs with anyone. So how could the American media, who can't even tell you the time or the weather, honestly, how could they know this was ISIS when the Russians had said absolutely nothing? This is problem number one. Then, on top of that, they say that because of these photographs that they released, okay, that this proves it was ISIS. Okay, they have their whole statement, and they have this one too. And I'll tell you, there's a problem here with what they're doing, because ISIS usually, they show their faces. They don't hide their faces. I mean, in their mind, they're going off to you know, they're going off to martyr themselves. Okay, so this is something to be proud of. Why would you hide your face? The even bigger problem, the more flagrant issue, is that they are holding their left hands up. Okay, so again, can you see this very clearly? How they have their left hands held up? There's something very, very wrong with this, because you don't do that. You know, Muslims, they simply don't raise the left hand when they're martyring themselves. They just don't. It's the right hand. I'm not a Muslim, but I know what I'm talking about. It's with the right hand, not the left one. And you had some people I saw sharing the image with, you know, basically flipped around to make it look like they have the right hand up, but then of course the Arabic text in the back would look all wrong. This is how they took the photo, because the text is reading the right way, and they have the wrong finger up. And it's not one of them or two of them, it's literally all of them. They're all doing this. So for me, this indicates these people have no idea what they're doing. They are dressing up and pretending to be ISIS. I don't even know if these are the same people that actually carried out the attack. It could be some idiots at the CIA. It could be some idiots at anywhere. I don't know. I'm just telling you, it doesn't fit. And if you're someone who's martyring yourselves, you don't do these kind of mistakes. It's ridiculous. All right. So these are the other irregularities. Then, of course, I want to show you this very excellent write-up here by my good friend Elijah. And he also shares my skepticism. And he says here that, you know, the text they released, this communique, they say muqatilin, that this is atypical. So yes, I mean, muqatilin is fighters, right? There's something particularly wrong with it, but he says it's simply irregular. Usually they will use mujahideen or istashhadeen, you know, those who have been martyred, or the ones who are battling their jihad. So that's correct. You will see those terms much, much more than you will see this word, but that's not all. Then, for example, the statement that they had withdrawn safely. Why would you withdraw if you're going to martyr yourself? The whole point is that you die in battle. This is like a Viking who wants to go to Valhalla, but they just throw their weapon to the side. What do you mean? You're supposed to hold the damn thing. Then, ISIS don't use voice changers in their communiques. Correct? Even Jihadi John, right? He pitched his voice which I don't even know what the point of that was, because you could tell it's him. But anyway, you don't use it, right, when you're speaking Arabic on top of it. Then, of course, the live broadcast. This is also something irregular and very, very, difficult to pull off, because your reception might be poor. You're inside of a concert hall. You don't even know if it's going to work. They might record themselves, but they're not going to broadcast it. And then, he simply finishes by saying that this shows that the claims of ISIS involvement in the Moscow attack should be discounted in his opinion, and I absolutely agree. There are other indicators here that tell me that this was not ISIS. The timing, right? I'm not just a journalist, I'm a geopolitical analyst, and I'm telling you that the timing of this is very off. What has happened in recent weeks in the world that could anger someone to attack Russia? Because look, you have to consider, this wasn't Tanzania who did this, right? It's not going to be Chile. It's not going to be Syria. Who did this? Who would want to cause this level of terror inside of Russia, in the capital, in Moscow, and have the ability to evade the security services as well? You have to consider, it's not just a question of wanting to hurt the Russians. It's, are you able to circumvent their security apparatus? Who can do that? Okay, so we had Vladimir Putin winning the elections. Overwhelmingly voted in favor of him. I didn't even bother doing a video about it, because what's the point? We know that the people in Russia love him. Maybe you don't like that, or you don't believe that. I don't care. This is a fact. So he won the elections. Ukraine are getting, they're getting bulldozed, right? They're getting gobsmacked and smacked down at the same time on the battlefield. And on top of that, the elections also included those territories. So that was sort of another nail in Ukraine's coffin, right? We all know that Gaza has been the focus, but nevertheless, the war on the ground for Ukraine, was lost even before Gaza. And I showed that to you when we talked about Russia's defenses, which, killed any spring offensive. Then on top of that, Russia and China just a few days ago concluded a security deal with the Yemenis, right? So that their ships are safe. They had safe passage anyway, but just to cement things, that Russian and Chinese ships could pass through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, up the Red Sea, unhindered, with complete safety, uninhibited. And in exchange, Russia and China would offer political support to the Yemenis, for example, in the United Nations Security Council. And then, of course, we have all of these three things happening. You'll forgive me because I had a fourth, and now I've completely bloody forgotten the thing, and I'm really angry I didn't write them down, because I come on these live streams and sit here for like 3 hours with you, and I have zero notes. Anyway, on the world stage, who would this anger? Who would be so angered by this and also have the capabilities of pulling off such an attack? I'm sorry, the answer here to me is very clear. It's the United States. It could be the United States with Ukraine. Remember that we have to look at the history. Does the United States have a history of attacking the Russians in such a manner? Up until 2 years ago, I would have said no. But after the Nord Stream bombing, anything goes. The Nord Stream bombing was done by the Americans. This is absolutely clear. And so they crossed the line here and really went too far. Now they've crossed another line. Because let me be very clear. I'm not saying that Russia should respond in kind. But if they wanted to, believe me, they could. And they could make this, they could wreak unimaginable havoc on the American people. But because the Russians don't lower themselves to such a poor, vile standard, it's just, I don't foresee that happening. Nevertheless, the Americans have crossed lines like this. They have attacked even the Kremlin with drones. That's a fact. It's a fact. They have helped and given the Ukrainians to do it, if not done it themselves. So we have precedents we have the motive, we have the culprit who stands to benefit. It's very clear it's the United States. I'm not saying that it's ironclad 100% the United States. What I'm saying is that it is most likely the United States. Understand the difference, okay? My analysis, looking at world politics, looking at international affairs, looking at, in addition to that, Putin's electoral victory, I'm telling you that it's most likely the United States. And once again, what happened in January, for example? We had a terrorist attack, the worst in history since the revolution in 1979. So Iran's worst terrorist attack in modern history. You had all of these people killed. And at the same time, at the exact same time, the Israelis were assassinating someone in Beirut. And then they were also killing other resistance leaders. So you have a trend here in recent times, in this year, of the Israelis and the Americans launching terrorist attacks and then blaming ISIS or using ISIS as a cover. And then immediately you have telltale signs. ISIS don't speak that way. ISIS don't dress that way. ISIS don't release communiques that way. So all of these things combined lead me to this conclusion. I'll give you another thing. The Americans released, I know some people have pointed to this as ironclad proof. I'm not saying it is, but I'm just showing you so you can take it into consideration when you look at things. This was on the 7th of March. So mind you, it's about 2-3 weeks before the concert hall attack. The US Embassy in Russia released a statement saying that people, namely Americans, of course, right, should avoid large gatherings over the next 48 hours. And that, they said that this includes concerts, okay? They specifically mentioned concerts, and that extremists have imminent plans to target large gatherings in Moscow. I mean, and what happened, 2 weeks later? Extremists attacked Russia in Moscow in a concert hall. So it's awfully specific. I can understand why someone would look at that and say, yeah, it's obvious. But at the same time, if you're planning such an attack, why would you advertise it by warning Americans as if the United States cares about its own citizens? So I understand the arguments against and for, but this is not what I take into account when I come to the conclusion that it's most likely the Americans. This is just an additional thing to keep in mind as it's been brought up numerous times. I'll also show you a statement that was put out today, just a few hours ago. This is from the head of the Russian CIA. Yes, I'll put it that way because people don't know it's called the FSB and still think it's called KGB. This is what he said. He said that the United States, Britain, and Ukraine are behind the City Hall attack. And he said that we believe this is true. In any case, we are now talking about the factual information we have. This is general information, but they have a long record of this sort. He said that Ukraine have been trying to prove their capability, that they're big enough, and that they can, he said, what is it expected to do to demonstrate its capability? It's expected to carry out sabotage and terrorist attacks in the rear, right? In the rear means not on the front line where they're fighting, but in the capital city, at home. This is what both the chiefs of Ukraine's special services and the British special services are aiming at. The US special services have repeatedly mentioned this too. As I was saying, similarly, I mentioned the drone strikes. He says there have been drone strikes by uncrewed boats at sea. He means underwater unmanned vehicles. So basically like a drone in the sky, but underwater, right? Same principle. And incursions by groups of saboteurs and terrorist organizations into our territory. So obviously the underwater drone is what I referred to when I mentioned the Nord Stream sabotage attacks. And, in addition to that, there's the Crimea Bridge attack. So we have a lot of things here, a mountain of evidence piling up, which shows that this was not ISIS. It was the United States, maybe with Ukraine, maybe with the UK, I don't know. But very, very, very suspicious. I mean, the United States would have accused Russia of doing something, like this with not even 1% of this evidence. So yeah, we have to go ahead and call this out for what it is. It looks like a U.S. hack, it looks like a hack job, and this is from Kirby. So again, he was talking after the attack. This is after the attack, but he mentions the communique that I read to you just momentarily.
I've also seen, hopefully you saw the State Department, our embassy there, put out a notice to all Americans in Moscow to avoid any large gathering, concerts, obviously shopping malls, anything like that, just for their own safety. They should stay put where they are and stay.
Well, he looks like he's rather uncomfortable. And here's Corinne Jean-Pierre.
In early March, the United States, this government shared information with Russia about a planned terror attack in Moscow. We were very clear about that. On March 7th, we actually informed Americans in Russia did a public advisory, to be more specific. And, ISIS bears the sole responsibility here. The sole responsibility, and Mr. Putin understands that. We shared that with their government, and so there is no evidence, absolutely no evidence, that Ukraine was involved here.
How did you go about sharing that information? Was it through the State Department, U.S. Embassy?
I'm just not going to get into specifics. The U.S. government shared that with Russian authorities, and I'll just leave it there.
I have no evidence that the United States shared that with Russian authorities. The United States warned its own citizens in Moscow, which is entirely different. Nevertheless, again, these two were speaking after the attack. Okay, don't mistake or think it's before, but still, they don't seem to inspire much confidence, right? Here, by the way, just for comparison, you can see some photos of ISIS operations where they beforehand, they're holding up the flag, they're showing their faces on camera, they're holding up the right hand. Look at the hand, it's the right hand. They're going to martyr themselves, right? This is the martyrdom sign with the right hand. Unequivocally, without exception. It's not something that you accidentally do. I'm sorry, you're embarking on such an endeavor and you don't know which hand to hold up. No, this is ridiculous. Absolutely, I mean, so stupid that it doesn't even merit, one moment of consideration. Now, I don't know if Ukraine honestly had anything to do with this. I think they did to some extent, just because they're so frustrated about losing the war. Just for the fact that many Israelis are Ukrainians, and you can see how vindictive they are, on display in Gaza every single day. So, this would not be surprising to me. But without question, whoever did this, I know, by the way, the culprits are from Tajikistan, as if that makes any difference. I mean, we're not talking about the culprits. We're talking about who organized, orchestrated, supplied, and provided the intelligence and logistics to do this. This is what really matters. If we're talking about an organization and who bears responsibility, it's obviously their backers as well. 4 people by themselves cannot pull something off like this against Russia. This is, it's a sophisticated operation, and a very, very, critical and deadly one. So this has nothing to do with the, government in Tajikistan. And again, remember that it's a former Soviet state, so they used to be one country. And anyway, the United States, CIA, MI6, for me, without question, these are the primary backers and orchestrators of this attack on Russia. And I find this really, really disturbing for multiple reasons, because we have crossed a line that has never been crossed before. Even in the Cold War, even after the Cold War, you never had something like this in the capital city, pulled off, in London by the Russians, or vice versa, or in New York and Moscow, or vice versa. Never, ever. So Nord Stream, they crossed the line, and now the Biden administration, and don't, it's not even about the administration, because even if the Republicans and Trump take over, they will still behave the same way. They're lunatics. So they have crossed a dangerous, dangerous, dangerous line. And the second the Russians begin to react in any fashion or capacity, they will scream, "Oh my God, you're hurting us." They're just jealous, and they're mad because they're losing with BRICS, they're losing with Yemen, they're losing with Gaza. On the world stage, the Americans are a joke. They're a joke. Whatever age or era they think they had is gone down the toilet. Everyone can see what is going on. The whole world can see how the Americans are behaving in Gaza, how their American sanctions are crushing Syria and Iran and Venezuela and Cuba for 60 years. This is really a mountain of crimes that have piled up and are on full display. And now that there's an alternative system being proposed, they are desperately, trying to cling to that. And the more desperate they get, the more desperate and violent the actions become. And this is just a further indication that we're headed down that road.